Hello, my ladies of inestimable value. The most fascinating masks are the ones that never crack, only shift. You think you've seen her. You haven't. She smiles in the meeting, makes polite eye contact, says all the right things. Calm, collected, low drama. The kind of woman people call mysterious without realizing she's already scanned, categorized, and dismissed the entire room. But behind that clean, socially acceptable facade, a different creature entirely. Studies in psychology have shown that people with high cognitive complexity, those who can hold conflicting traits at once, are often misunderstood. Sigma females don't just hold contradictions, they live them. She's her own double agent, one self for the world, another for the shadows where she thrives. And the two, they rarely meet. You could live next door to her, work with her for years, maybe even date her, and still never meet the version that runs the show when the doors close. That version is colder, smarter, freer, and occasionally wicked. Think of her as James Bond in a black turtleneck, with a shelf full of psychology books, a sarcastic group chat with herself, and a mysterious disappearance every time things get too emotional. Welcome to the double life of the Sigma female. You're not ready, but let's begin. Number 1. Connection is a risk they rarely bet on. Sigma females understand the value of connection, but they rarely jump into it blindly. To them, getting close to someone isn't just emotional, it's a calculated risk. While others dive into friendships or relationships based on chemistry or vibes, the Sigma female approaches connection like a long-term investment. She's not heartless, she's cautious. Her mind automatically runs through a checklist. What's this person's intent? Can they be trusted? What's their emotional bandwidth? And most importantly, what's the cost of letting them in? In public, she seems friendly, maybe even charming. She listens well, contributes intelligently, knows how to maintain the right amount of engagement. But there's always a boundary, subtle but firm. People may feel they know her, but in truth, they only know the version she's decided to show. That version is strategic, curated to keep interactions smooth while offering no real access to her private world. Privately, she wrestles with her own desire for closeness. There's often a part of her that wants deep connection, something raw, real, and mutual. But the weight of what that would require keeps her at a distance. She's seen too many people reveal their worst selves when vulnerability enters the room. She's watched connections rot from the inside out because someone couldn't handle honesty, intensity, or emotional accountability. And so, she holds back. Even when she likes someone, she watches them like a test subject. Do they talk behind others' backs? Do they overshare too fast? Do they need validation constantly? It's not judgment, it's survival. Letting the wrong person in could mean chaos, distraction, or betrayal. She's not building walls to keep everyone out. She's building a filter that only a rare few can pass through. And here's the paradox. The deeper she feels a connection, the more distance she might create. Not out of cruelty, but self-protection. To most, she seems guarded, but inside, she's just calculating whether this is the kind of closeness that feeds her or burns her. Number 2. Deeply loyal, but you'll never know until you need it. Sigma females don't advertise their loyalty. They won't declare it, post about it, or cling to people to prove it. In fact, in public, you might assume they're indifferent, aloof even. They keep a cool distance, rarely gush over friendships, and almost never do performative closeness. To the casual observer, it can look like they don't really attach to anyone. But that assumption couldn't be more wrong. What makes their loyalty different is that it's not loud. It's deep. It's not something they hand out freely or impulsively. It's earned slowly, quietly over time. And once you have it, it's unshakable. They might not be the ones constantly checking in or posting about their besties, but when everything falls apart, when things get ugly, real, or dangerous, they're the ones standing beside you while everyone else disappears. Not because they have to, because they chose to. But here's the catch. You won't know they're that loyal until your life actually hits the wall. That's when the mask drops. That's when they show up, take control, and do what needs to be done, without making it about themselves. No drama, no spotlight, just quiet action. It could be pulling you out of a mental breakdown, handling a crisis you didn't know how to face, or defending you when you weren't in the room. You won't see it coming, but you'll never forget it once it happens. They don't throw the word loyalty around because for them it's sacred. It's tied to integrity, not emotion, and that's why their loyalty feels so rare. It's not based on mood or convenience. It's grounded in principle. If you've made it into their inner circle, they'll protect you with the same intensity they protect their solitude. Just don't expect a warning label or a heartwarming speech. With Sigma females, loyalty is never obvious. It's hidden, it's quiet. But when it shows up, it's everything. Number 3, mentally simulating every worst-case scenario. Sigma females walk into every room having already considered how it could all fall apart. It's not pessimism, it's preparation. Their mind is like a private command center constantly running simulations. What if this person betrays me? What if I lose everything? What if I'm left alone with nothing but my thoughts? Most people are caught off guard by chaos. Sigma females have already mapped it out, step by step. To the outside world, they appear calm, unbothered, even emotionally removed. But that composure isn't natural. It's built. It's the result of hours, days, sometimes years of mental rehearsal. While others avoid uncomfortable thoughts, Sigma females face them head-on in silence. They don't deny the dark possibilities. They analyze them, play them out, and plan for how to survive them. Emotionally, financially, psychologically. They've already imagined the betrayal before you betray them. They've already visualized losing the job before the layoff notice arrives. They've pictured a conversation turning on them before the first sentence leaves your mouth. That's why they don't flinch. You think they're being stoic in the moment, but what's really happening is that they've already lived this moment 100 times in their mind. It's not about being paranoid, it's about control. They don't want to be caught off guard because being unprepared is a form of vulnerability they can't afford. This is how they maintain their edge, their silence, their power. Their mental world is a mix of strategy and scar tissue. What might seem like coldness to others is often just emotional discipline built from worst-case rehearsals. They've made peace with chaos in advance, so when it finally arrives, they're not devastated. They're just ready. There's no meltdown, no panic, just quiet execution of the plan they've had all along. The chaos you fear is the terrain they've already mastered in private. Number 4. Their quiet is not peaceful, it's strategic chaos. When a Sigma female goes quiet, most people misread it. They think she's relaxed, maybe zoning out or emotionally checked out. But her silence isn't calm, it's loaded. Behind that still face is a high-functioning storm. Her mind is scanning, calculating, dissecting every angle of the situation. While others use silence to rest, she uses it to regroup, rearm, and sometimes reposition herself entirely. People expect emotional silence to mean peace. With Sigma females, silence is often the exact opposite. It's a weaponized state. When they stop speaking, they're not retreating, they're advancing behind the scenes. It could mean they've detected something off. It could mean they're reconsidering who you are to them. It could mean they're mentally stepping outside of the moment to rerun the last 5 interactions for hidden meanings. Their quiet is never idle, it's high-level processing. Even in heated moments, they don't always react right away. They absorb, not because they're avoiding conflict, but because they're gathering data. Every silence is a scan, every pause is a judgment, and by the time they speak, they've already made up their mind about where you stand. This is why their stillness unnerves people. You don't know what they're thinking, and you won't find out until they decide you're ready, or that you're irrelevant. That makes their quiet dangerous, but only to those who underestimated them. In relationships, this silence can be even more intense. You might think everything is fine because they're not complaining, but inside they might be preparing to walk away, reconstructing their life without you, one silent thought at a time. By the time you ask what's wrong, they're emotionally 10 miles away and packing the rest in silence. With Sigma females, don't assume silence means peace. It means the game has shifted, and you weren't invited to the next move. Number 5. They fear being known more than being alone. For a Sigma female, loneliness isn't the enemy. It's familiar, manageable, even empowering. She can navigate solitude like second nature. She thrives in it. It gives her clarity, control, and space to breathe. But being known, truly known, is a different story. That's the real threat. To be seen means to be exposed, and exposure, for someone who has built an entire life on inner sovereignty and emotional privacy, feels like handing over the keys to her personal fortress. It's not about shyness or insecurity. It's about the danger of letting someone see the full picture. The quiet ambitions, the old wounds, the parts of her personality that don't play well in public. The depth, the contradictions, the fire beneath the still surface. Most people can't handle it, and she knows it. That's why she's selective with her truths. She might reveal just enough to make you think you know her, while keeping the core protected behind a dozen mental locks. Vulnerability is rationed, not because she's emotionally unavailable, but because she understands what exposure can cost. Control, leverage, safety. Once someone truly knows you, they can weaponize your softness. And she's seen it happen too many times to risk it easily. Being alone, on the other hand, poses no such threat. In solitude, there's no one to perform for, no one to disappoint, no one to betray her trust. She can be her full, raw, unfiltered self without consequence. Alone, she's safe. With others, she's a calculation. People often confuse her emotional distance with arrogance or coldness, but it's self-defense. Letting someone in fully isn't just an act of trust, it's a form of surrender. And surrender has never been her style. So yes, she'll choose silence over confession, space over closeness, and solitude over risky connection. Not because she doesn't crave intimacy, but because being truly seen feels like the ultimate exposure. And for a Sigma female, that's far scarier than walking alone. Number 6. Emotional muting in public, emotional intensity in private. In public, Sigma females are masters of emotional restraint. You won't see them break down, lash out, or overshare. Their faces rarely betray the chaos underneath. They've trained themselves to appear neutral, even when they're internally flooded with emotion. This muting isn't accidental, it's survival. To them, showing too much in front of the wrong audience invites misunderstanding, judgment, or vulnerability they haven't consented to. So they edit heavily. But behind closed doors, it's a different story entirely. Privately, their emotional world is anything but muted. It's intense, raw, and sometimes all-consuming. They feel deeply, but not always in a spontaneous, expressive way. Instead, their emotions often move in long, looping cycles. They'll replay a conversation for hours, dissect a feeling from every angle, and analyze what most people would just try to forget. It's not emotional immaturity, it's emotional engineering. They want to understand why they feel what they feel, where it comes from, and what it means. This private emotional processing can get so deep that it borders on obsessive. They'll remember what someone said 6 months ago and still be decoding the emotional weight behind it. They'll feel heartbreak like a clinical case study, detached in public, but tearing apart every detail in private. This can make them seem cold to others who don't realize the full force of what they're actually carrying. They don't suppress their emotions, they schedule them. And when they do finally express them, it's usually refined, articulated, and precise. No emotional explosions, just quiet storms that have been shaped over time. The danger? Few people ever witness this side of them. So they're often misunderstood as emotionally distant, when in reality they feel too much, so much in fact that they can't afford to let it spill out everywhere. That kind of emotional intensity, if shown in public, would feel like handing someone a loaded weapon. So they keep it locked away behind the calm smile and sharp words. The world sees control, only solitude sees the storm. Number 7. Master of the microexit. Sigma females are experts at leaving without making a scene. They don't slam doors, announce their exits, or cause emotional chaos. Instead, they perform what can only be described as a microexit, a quiet, almost imperceptible detachment that begins long before anyone notices they're gone. You might still see them smiling, nodding, engaging just enough to seem present. But internally, they've already left. Their mind is somewhere else, observing rather than participating, calculating whether the connection or environment is worth their energy. If it's not, the withdrawal begins, not physically, not yet, but emotionally and mentally. The light is still on, but no one's home. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. When a sigma female senses a shift, insincerity, drama, manipulation, or even just energetic drain, she doesn't fight or confront. She simply starts to recede, not as revenge, not as a tactic, but as instinct. She doesn't believe in forcing bonds, fixing what feels off, or begging for compatibility. If the vibe is wrong, she's gone. Silently, in private, she'll break the entire situation down. What was said, what wasn't said, the body language, the tone, the micro-expressions, she catches it all. She'll dissect it like evidence in a case file, and if she comes to the conclusion that the dynamic no longer serves her, she won't argue. She'll simply vanish from emotional availability, one layer at a time. By the time someone realizes she's emotionally unavailable, she's already 4 steps into a new mental space, possibly a new chapter of life. There's no mess, no blow-up, no dramatic exit speech, just less of her than none. This kind of disappearing act confuses people because there's no warning. One day the connection feels alive, the next it's like she's watching it from a distance, unmoved. That's the Sigma way. She doesn't do chaos. She does quiet departures. And when she leaves, you won't hear the door close. You'll just notice it's colder and she's not coming back. Number 8. Their public persona is a calculated mirage. What the world sees of a Sigma female is rarely the full picture. In fact, it's often a carefully engineered version, purposefully limited, controlled, and selectively revealed. This public persona isn't fake, but it's definitely filtered. Every gesture, every conversation, every smile has been run through an internal calibration system that asks, does this reveal too much? Does this bind me to something I don't want? Does this create emotional obligation I didn't sign up for? Her public self is designed for one purpose: freedom. Freedom from intrusion, expectation, emotional entanglement. She's not interested in being overly relatable or making herself emotionally available to just anyone. So she presents a version that is competent, socially functional, even charismatic, but never fully open. People may think she's transparent because she speaks clearly and directly. But clarity is not vulnerability, it's control. Behind the scenes, there's a whole other self, messier, sharper, more intense. This version has opinions she doesn't share, wounds she doesn't reveal, passions she keeps buried, and fears she handles in private. It's a layered self that only a microscopic few ever get close to. And even then she keeps the most dangerous parts to herself, not out of deception, but protection. The mirage she projects publicly keeps her insulated. It prevents people from thinking they know her just because they've spent time around her. It's a boundary dressed up as a personality. And it works. Most people interact with this projection without ever suspecting there's something more beneath it. What makes this particularly unnerving is that she can maintain this curated version indefinitely. She doesn't crack under pressure. She doesn't need to overshare to feel seen. She doesn't drop hints, hoping someone will dig deeper. If you don't ask the right questions and earn the right to hear the answers, you'll only ever meet the mirage. So while others perform to be loved, the Sigma female performs to remain unreadable. And that's the point. The less you know, the more control she keeps. Number 9. They secretly loathe their own popularity. Sigma females never chase popularity, but it often finds them anyway. Their independence, quiet confidence, and refusal to conform draw people in like moths to a flame. Ironically, the very things they do to avoid attention, staying mysterious, not oversharing, not pandering, are exactly what make them fascinating. And that's where the internal friction begins. Because while others might crave admiration, Sigma females often feel a quiet disgust toward it, especially when it's shallow or performative. Compliments based on surface traits, popularity rooted in image rather than substance, or attention that comes with strings and expectations. It all feels intrusive, not flattering, not validating, invasive, like someone's peering into their space without permission. This isn't about low self-worth. It's about misalignment. They know when admiration isn't based on real understanding, and that disconnect bothers them deeply. Being praised for a version of themselves they've carefully edited for public consumption feels false. It can even create guilt or discomfort, as if they're being celebrated for something that isn't quite real. And Sigma females value authenticity too much to feel comfortable with that kind of praise. Worse, popularity often comes with forced social obligations, being invited places they don't want to go, expected to respond with enthusiasm they don't feel, or included in dynamics that feel emotionally taxing. To the Sigma, these things are traps disguised as flattery, and because they avoid conflict, they often endure them quietly, while mentally plotting their next micro-exit. Their ideal scenario isn't to be liked by many, it's to be understood by a rare few and left alone by the rest. So while the world may admire the Sigma female from a distance, she's rarely flattered by the attention. She knows how quickly admiration turns into expectation, and how easily fascination turns into entitlement. And that's why she moves through popularity like smoke, untouched, unimpressed, and always ready to disappear the moment it starts to feel too close. Number 10. Intellectual personas hide existential turmoil. Sigma females often wear intellect like armor. In public, they appear calm, analytical, and self-assured, always thinking 3 moves ahead, always asking the sharper questions. People often mistake this mental clarity for emotional stability, assuming that someone so in control of their thoughts must also be in control of everything else. But that's only part of the picture. In solitude, that same intellectual sharpness becomes a double-edged sword. When there's no one around to perform for, their mind doesn't quiet down, it turns inward fast and deep. What began as reflection becomes interrogation. They don't just think about what happened, they deconstruct the meaning of it. They question purpose, identity, mortality, and connection with a precision that doesn't stop until it spirals into paradox. This isn't romantic overthinking, it's raw existential turmoil. They can feel detached from the world one moment, deeply burdened by it the next. They ask themselves questions most people would run from. What's the point of any of this? Am I just observing life instead of living it? If no one truly knows me, do I even exist in any real sense? These aren't temporary moods. These are intellectual sinkholes they've walked into so many times. They've memorized the terrain, and yet it never feels less heavy. The paradox is this. Their intellectualism gives them clarity, but it also magnifies their dread. The more they understand, the more they feel disconnected from people who never seem to ask these questions. That disconnection creates more isolation, and the cycle repeats. To others, they seem emotionally in control, but inside they're often trying to climb out of the latest philosophical rabbit hole they fell into, alone. That's why Sigma females often crave solitude and simultaneously fear it. It's where they feel most themselves, but also where their most unrelenting thoughts live. They won't show this side unless you've earned full access. And even then, you'll only get glimpses, because some thoughts are so vast, so raw, they don't even know how to speak them aloud. Number 11. They are brutally honest, internally, diplomatic externally. Sigma females are often seen as tactful, calm, and intentional with their words. In public, they weigh their responses, choosing language that's efficient, neutral, and rarely inflammatory. They don't start fights, don't speak just to be heard, and avoid drama by default. Their diplomacy isn't about people-pleasing, it's strategy. Why waste energy on friction when silence or subtle deflection keeps them in control? But their internal world is an entirely different terrain. Inside, the gloves are off. The way they speak to themselves, about themselves, is nothing short of brutal. There's no sugarcoating, no softening, no emotional padding. They dissect their actions, motives, and flaws like a merciless critic who knows every crack in the foundation. Where others might give themselves grace, Sigma females hold themselves to an almost inhuman standard. And they don't let themselves off the hook easily. If they make a mistake, the self-analysis kicks in immediately. Why did I say that? What signal did I miss? Did I let my guard down? What's the cost? There's no room for excuses in their mental audit. It's not self-hate, but it's damn close to self-interrogation. They're constantly running internal diagnostics, and if something doesn't align with their standards, they cut it down, hard. Ironically, the people around them often assume they're confident or even emotionally detached. But they have no idea that behind the composed exterior is a person who critiques herself with a scalpel. This internal harshness is part of what makes Sigma females appear so precise. They've already run every thought through a ruthless filter before it ever leaves their mouth. That's why their public diplomacy isn't weakness, it's restraint. They know the power of words. They know how damaging honesty can be when weaponized. And they also know that if people could hear how brutally honest they are with themselves, it would scare them. What the world sees as calm is just the outer shell of a mind that never stops questioning, cutting, refining. Diplomatic on the outside, relentless on the inside. That's the paradox they live in, by choice. Number 12. Rebellion hidden in compliance. Sigma females are often mistaken for being cooperative or easy to work with because, on the surface, they seem to play by the rules. They don't cause disruptions, don't loudly protest, and don't wear their rebellion on their sleeves. But underneath that composed exterior lies a quiet insurgent, someone who doesn't believe in burning down the system but in quietly hijacking it from within. They comply because it gives them access. They follow the rules because it lets them learn the game. But the whole time, they're studying how to bend it, twist it, exploit the loopholes, and eventually make it work for them. Their rebellion isn't loud or theatrical. It's surgical. They don't scream in the streets. They infiltrate the boardroom, pass your test with a smile, follow the dress code, and then rewrite the rules when no one's looking. This hidden defiance gives them immense power. People underestimate them, thinking their outward compliance means agreement. But Sigma females are rarely aligned with the systems they navigate. They're just smart enough to mimic cooperation until they no longer need to. They'll learn your process, outdo your expectations, and then bypass your authority without ever making a scene. That's the rebellion. It's clean, invisible, effective. In work environments, they'll master protocols not because they believe in them, but because knowing them gives them leverage. In social circles, they'll play along with the expected behaviors, while internally rejecting almost everything about them. Even in relationships, they may appear easygoing, when in truth they're constantly renegotiating the emotional terms in their head. What people miss is that Sigma females never fully buy in. Their mind is always half a step outside the structure they're standing in. They don't belong to the system. They're just visiting, mapping it, and preparing to twist it in their favor when the time comes. It's rebellion with a poker face. Compliance as camouflage. They don't fight the machine. They learn it so they can break it without anyone seeing the cracks. In the world of blurred lines and surface-level identities, the Sigma female exists as a contradiction most people can't decode. She's the quiet strategist behind the curtain, the calm exterior masking an emotional storm, the rule follower who's actually writing her own manual behind your back. To know her fully is nearly impossible, not because she's hiding, but because she lives in layers most will never reach. Her public self is curated, strategic, untouchable. Her private self, intense, analytical, deeply loyal, and brutally self-aware. She's constantly balancing freedom and connection, rebellion and restraint, intellect and emotional chaos. And that duality is not dysfunction, it's design. Every silence, every disappearance, every controlled smile hides a lifetime of calculation, strength, and survival. She doesn't perform for applause, and she doesn't self-destruct for acceptance. She moves through the world on her own frequency, rarely tuning into the noise around her. That's what makes her magnetic. That's what makes her misunderstood. And that's exactly how she wants it. Because at the end of the day, the Sigma female's greatest power isn't in being known. It's in being unknowable. And in a world obsessed with exposure, she remains the last true mystery. If this dive into the double life of the Sigma female struck a chord, or made you rethink everything you thought you knew, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to stay ahead of the curve with content that cuts deeper than the usual noise. Like if you felt seen, comment if you've got something real to say, and share this with someone who needs to understand the complexity behind the calm. This isn't just a channel, it's a space for minds that don't follow the script. Stick around, the surface is just the beginning.